You're really, and we are recording this for our friends also at Rosa Scott, at Ridgeland High School and Germantown High School, and for our YouTube channel. So we've taken a look at your website. We've looked at what State Farm agents do. But before we get to that, I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about your background as a basketball player, starting out at Ridgeway High School, which is one of the top programs in the Memphis area, then to Austin Peay State University, and then a career overseas, because we have several up-and-coming athletes that are with us and that'll watch this later. And I think it's important that we really spend a few minutes talking about not only your experience as a student athlete, but how that led to a career overseas and how you parlayed that career overseas to have a great career now as an entrepreneur. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience coming from high school to college and then into pro basketball?
Okay, so I agree with you that Ridgeway is one of the best schools in Memphis. But basically, sports has been, of course, a big part of my life and helped shape a lot of the things that have helped me have success, both sports-wise and outside of sports. And I think that it teaches people to have a good work ethic. That's what I really took from it. Also, how to work with others, because it's easier to work with others to get what you need to get done. And in order to accomplish more, you're gonna have to be able to work with other people. So that was a big part of the success that we had at Ridgeway and translating and allowing me to play at the next level. Also, it taught me to do the best that I can in whatever I do. Not for the other people, but for myself, to train myself that, hey, I want to be the best at whatever I do. And if you take that mentality, that will allow you to have success. So basically, those are the things that I learned when I was at Ridgeway, and I took that to every level. Also, goal setting is pretty big as well. Coach Luce actually helped me with that and learn that lesson. I was going up there. I want to, of course, win championships, and you want to do what's best to help the team win. But he also called me in his office and said, hey, if you want to play at the next level, you have to have some goals set down and put it on paper. And that really made it real for me to realize that, hey, he believes in me and think that I can play at the next level. And he finds that this is important. Let me try it out. And it allowed me to be an all-conference player the next couple years, by focusing on my goals and putting them down. If you don't put any goals down or goals set, you won't keep yourself accountable. You won't hold yourself accountable. So that was probably the biggest thing that has helped me, goal setting. Without that, you're just running with your head cut off, as I like to say. So that was a big thing that I learned at college that allowed me to go to the next level. And another thing that I want to hit on is treating yourself like a professional before you're a professional. When I was in school, my last couple of years, after having that talk with him, I treated myself like a pro every day. Whether I wanted to or not, I had to go in the gym, put up my shots, go lift, prepare, and do things that other people weren't willing to do. And I found that I've always tried to compete with people even when they're not competing with me, So if I see my teammates put up 50 shots before practice, I'm going to put up 100. I'm going to put up 51. I got to do one thing more than the other person. And once you take that mentality and do a little bit more than what other people are willing to do, you're going to have better results. There's no way around it, because you put in more work.
Absolutely.
So those are my biggest points and things that I've learned on my path to what I'm doing now. Just work hard, do the best that you can, and treat yourself like whatever you want to become. that makes it easy.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I was on staff at Austin P and you were a student, I mean, one thing that everybody could say about you is you were a great player, but you were a great student as well. And even if you weren't a 4.0, everybody knew you were taking care of business. So for any of these future student athletes that have any aspirations to play college sports, whether it be football, track, baseball, basketball, whatever, it's not like high school where you can just show it when you want to. The coach is going to baby you. Dave Luce was a great coach. Scott Combs is a current college head coach. So you had guys that were, their livelihood is on the line to coach you. So if you can't cut it, they will find somebody else. So how, going from high school to college sports, how competitive is that, and how cutthroat is that, or the demands of a student athlete, especially at the Division I level?
It is. It's tough. It's tough. And I've always tried to be a good student outside of sports, just because that puts you in a position to have more opportunity. So whether you decide that you don't want to play, you'll still put yourself in a good position to get scholarship money, even if you decide you want to give that sport up. Not only is it good to practice being a good student for that reason, but also it helps translate into basketball. You're building those skills to be able to execute what the coach is trying to teach you, and that doesn't just come by chance. If you're a good student, that's going to help you understand what's going on, know how to adapt when the game plan changes. If you can't do those things, you're not going to play on the next level. So, and then also there are thousands of other players that have just as much talent as you. So how do you stand out? Being able to be on the court. If you don't have the grades, they can't play you. You are taking up space, and there's a lot of other kids that are willing to do it on both sides. So that's a way to make you stand out, But that helps you understand schemes and things like that, because once you get on the next level, it's not all about what you can do. You got to be able to follow directions and know what they're trying to teach you and what they want you doing out there, or you're going to mess up the scheme.
Yeah, and especially, we have a great JUCO program in Mississippi, but especially on a Division I level, we have all these kids say, "I want a D1 offer, I want a D1 offer," but the rewards are great, but the work to get there is just exponential. And you were a great example of that. And you had a great college career at Austin P. You played in the NCAA tournament, played in the NIT, played against a lot of future NBA players. Ooh, almost knocked my computer over. You played against some great NBA players, played against Kenneth Fareed and some other guys that have great NBA careers, and you guys always played well against them. And then before we get into your business, you did play in Europe. So I think that's pretty cool. You had a professional basketball career. So I know you played in Hungary, Czech Republic, the Netherlands. I don't know. It's quite a few. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I played in the Czech, Slovakia, Hungary, Austria, a couple years in Belgium and Cyprus.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So unbelievable experience getting to see those different countries and experience those different cultures, see how other people live and things that they eat, and the different architecture of the buildings, everything. It's just totally different than the US. And I'm blessed that I got an opportunity to see those different countries. So, but in order to get there, it takes a lot of work, but it was worth it. But
that is super cool.
Yeah. So anyone has an opportunity to go over there, I would definitely recommend going and see the different cultures, because I think everyone should experience that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth taking the risk. We had a speaker. I had a speaker with my seniors last week who's in the Caribbean, and she said, "I'm a little country girl from Mississippi, but I was glad I took the risk because I was able to experience these new things." So I think you did a great example of that. And now, taking us to today, you have a State Farm insurance agent right there in Memphis, and you also deal in Mississippi and Arkansas as well. So, and like I said, we just watched a couple of videos about how the State Farm agencies work, how it is you are an entrepreneur. And we've been talking about the marketing career cluster, which you have a lot of marketing involved, the finance career cluster, where you deal with a lot of financial things, and also business administration, because you are a business owner.
Yes.
But you are your own boss, but you also deal in the financial industry. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what a State Farm agent does? Because obviously we have all ninth graders with us right here, so they may not fully understand how the insurance world works.
So basically, we help people manage risk, and if something goes wrong, State Farm is there to help them make whole, and put them back to where they were before that catastrophe happened. So that's basically what we do in a nutshell: prevent you from losing everything and not being able to replace those things. So a lot of people don't understand the importance of it. Um, for example, I had a situation where an investor wanted to buy a property, but he didn't want to insure the property. Okay, so let's say you purchase a home. Let's just use round numbers, $100,000 home, and you put that money in, you buy cash, and something happens to that home, a fire, one of your tenants do something totally out of your control. Well, if you don't have insurance, you just lost your investment. Well, if you have insurance, the insurance company will step in and help rebuild that home and make you whole. So we're here to protect you from things that could go wrong. And that's the basis of what we do here at State Farm.
Yeah, and I think especially in the rural communities, there is a kind of a mistrust of the insurance companies, and it's a culture thing that's been passed down in rural communities across the South. But why do you think, or what can be done to increase that trust in insurance companies like State Farm and show that it's needed? Because, like you said, people might make a business decision, or they may have an unexpected death, and a family is left homeless. So how do you get that word out and get and kind of change the narrative that insurance is so needed in these rural communities?
I think that COVID has really opened a lot of eyes to the great need for insurance, because you don't want to get in a situation where your family has to worry about how to bury you and how to take on the debt that you left behind, or things that you purchased that they can no longer afford. So I think that a lot of people have began to educate themselves about why they need insurance and the importance of, nobody wants to buy it, and they think that it's an expense that you don't need. I won't need it. I'm going to live this amount of time. But the fact is that things can go wrong. Nothing is for certain, and no one expected something like COVID to come around. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have lost someone due to this pandemic. And that has opened a lot of people's eyes to know that, hey, anything can happen. So protecting yourself in the event for a small fraction of what will be paid out in the event something does happen is very important to do, especially if you have children or loved ones, or you don't have enough money set aside to take care of your final expenses.
Oh yeah, and I think it's important for these young people to understand that, especially everybody's like, I want to be my own boss, I want to be an entrepreneur, but the insurance part of that is extremely important, especially if you're going to have a brick and mortar business, because there's different weather concerns in different part of the country, but in Memphis you're always going to have the flood concern. You're always going to have the tornado concern, and that's specific to you. But it's important to know that. I mean, as horrible and unlikely as it is, the old saying is just better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I think the best way to explain insurance. But as an entrepreneur, and obviously you were able to be smart with your money you did earn playing basketball and open your own business. And I think it's cool. Your degree was actually in computer science, but you went a whole different direction.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what it's like to manage your own business, how you market yourself, how how you run your day-to-day operations. Because at the end of the day, even though you have a State Farm name on the building, the buck stops with you when it comes to things that go on in that business.
Exactly, and I just opened on New Year's Day, so I'm still new to
Awesome.
this side of the equation. I worked under an agent for a while, but It's definitely an experience. You're the leader now, so you have to get out there, put yourself out there, market. I'm an introvert. Most people won't think that if they look online, because I have to market a lot. But I'm an introvert. You have to get uncomfortable, and you know, there's a great risk, but I think that there's a great reward.
Absolutely.
If you do it right. So I
Absolutely.
was willing to do that. Um, and anyone that wants to be their own boss is not easy. But again, if you put in the work, you treat yourself like a professional, and you try to learn every day, you make mistakes and learn from them, I think that you'll be okay.
Yeah, and the and not, you said something very important. I'm glad you touched on this because a lot of people they want to be an entrepreneur without first learning the business, which is extremely foolish. That's like opening a restaurant just because you like to eat, or it's like opening a medical clinic because you think it's cool to help people. I think it's extremely important that you did learn the insurance industry first because especially if somebody wants to get into the insurance business, how important is it to learn the industry first before you open it up for yourself?
It's definitely important because you don't want to do something, get into something, and you, especially when you're dealing with something like insurance that's important, you don't want to mess up and this person's home is not covered because you didn't know how to do something, or they're not properly covered and they think they had $100,000 in coverage, but they only had $25,000 in coverage, and they were counting on that money um, when they thought they got that policy, or underinsuring a home and they can't rebuild the home because there's not enough coverage in place. So it's very important because it's dealing with people's money and being able to provide for them, their family, and it's just a very important industry. And you want to make sure that you're properly trained to be able to do that and take care of people's needs.
Yeah, because it is people's livelihoods at stake. I mean, that's like you said, and I think it's also important, even though it is some sales involved. But at the end of the day, you want to have things that fits people's budget, but you want to make sure it fits their lifestyle. You don't want to underinsure somebody.
Exactly.
It's one of those things you got to be brutally honest. You got to say, look, you own a home that's this many square feet. You're going to need this policy in case something happens, or you own a business that's worth this amount of money. You're going to need this policy in case something happens. You have this underlying health condition. You're going to need this life insurance policy in case something happens. So you have to be up on all that stuff, but you have to let people know the honest truth. Now,
Exactly.
and also if somebody has a job where they're providing insurance, and I know you guys do a lot of that too, providing through corporations, how important is it that they take advantage of that? Because with the ever increasing prices, you have folks opt out of insurance because they want to have more on their paycheck. But at the end of the day, that could cost them more money. So how important is it for these young people, even if they never want to be an insurance agent, to be up to date and educated on insurance issues so they can take care of themselves and their family in the future?
I think is very important. I think that they should sit down with their HR rep to really get a grasp of what they're passing up on. Because with insurance, especially, I'll just use the example of life insurance. Um, Today's price is always a discount compared to next year's price. Why? Because we're all getting older, and you don't know what health issues may arise, and being able to lock in a price today will benefit you. You may not realize how important it is today, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll look back and say, hey, I should have took advantage of that. But you don't know that. You don't know what you don't know. So I think it's important to sit down with someone and just really get a grasp of how everything works, and also just seek their advice, seek out advice, and ask many people advice about these issues, so you make sure you make a educated decision.
Yeah, and one thing that we've had from a few of the guests we've had in these last few weeks is that in a lot of these jobs, it's important. One of the most important skills you're going to have, besides being an expert on insurance, is being an expert communicator. Because at the end of the day, how much is it where you're having to explain something complex in simple terms? Because everybody doesn't understand the whole insurance thing. So the communication side, and not just the insurance, but of owning a business, how important is that when it comes to communication skills? Because these kids want to get mad when I make them do presentations. And again, it's not to be mean, it's not to make them public speakers, but the communication skills in business are vital if you're ever going to be profitable. So, one, how have you learned that being an introvert? And then two, how much is that, how important is that for people that are in business for themselves?
It's extremely important. Again, I'm an introvert, but I've had situations where I just threw myself into the fire and said, hey, I need to learn this. I'm not, I don't think I'm the best public speaker or anything of that nature, but I think that you have to do what you have to do, whether it's volunteering to go start at a school and go speak to a school. I went to go speak to children that were locked up in juvenile,
Right.
I went to a few schools and just volunteered to talk to their children. And, I'm not that great of a public speaker, but that has helped me when I go into interviews or meetings with State Farm reps and be able to get my points across and be able to talk to them and have a real conversation with them. And that came from throwing myself in the fire in these other situations that I didn't have to do,
Awesome.
So it's very important that you work on that if you want to, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not, you're going to have to develop those skills.
Yeah, and also I think you can also say if you ever plan on playing any type of Division I sport, you're gonna have to learn to talk to the press, because those guys were I'll never get laughing. They're sitting there waiting at practice for y'all to come out of practice, and they got a microphone in your face. I was like, you kidding me? Let them get in the shower first. I mean, so it is one of those things. You don't have to be an expert, but you're gonna at least have to sound like you got some sense.
Exactly, because that goes into newspapers or online, and you want to make sure that you are presenting yourself in a good light, because you can't take it back, and you don't want to say something that you'll regret and is out there, because people will see that and take their opinions based off of what you say.
Absolutely, even more so now than ever. But I do have some questions from the students I want to get to, and these are all ninth graders, and some of these are really good. But this is from Keandra Crosby, and she asked, what is the main challenges you've had to overcome to get where you are now?
I guess just sometimes when you are not moving as quickly as you would like to, just getting over the doubt that you'll actually get to where you want to get to, just staying consistent. I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges, but staying consistent.
Absolutely. Now, this is from Christian Dawson, and this is kind of the entrepreneur side. He asked, as an entrepreneur, how do you differentiate yourself from the competitors?
I try to use my background as an athlete to make myself stand out. I'm not that skilled at, I guess, marketing. So I like to use my basketball background to post material, and a lot of agents haven't had the experience of playing and living in 9 different countries. So those are some of the things that I try to expose and put out there to make myself different.
It's definitely a different experience, and I think and that could draw in the casual customer. Say, hey, I'm a basketball fan. Find ways to reach your target market. I think that's always something that can work to your advantage. Now, along those same lines, this is Brian McMurtry, and he asked, what skills from your basketball career have you carried over to your State Farm career?
I think I hit on it. Treating myself like a professional and doing my best. So whether I want to leave early one day, making sure that I give that extra effort. If that person needs that change and it's time to leave the office, staying a little bit longer to get that task done for them. So doing a little bit more than what's required to answer the question.
Yeah, and especially, and we keep talking about your sports background, but if any of these kids watching or watching later, if they ever plan on being an athlete, it's at that level, it's going to take that extra work, because your team at Austin Peay has some guys from outside the United States. So not only are there American prospects, there's foreign prospects. So you multiply the amount of high school basketball players in the United States times the ones in Europe and South America and Australia and Africa. You're looking at a lot of people that are willing to take your job in a matter of seconds. So
and guess
right.
what?
Yeah.
those clubs are raising up kids, and they have to go every day and practice twice a day, and they're doing it year round. So, you know, the talent gap is surely going to close. Exactly. And those guys over there, they have the opportunity to play professionally when they become 16 on these different clubs. So they're getting the experience of treating themselves like a pro, knowing how to eat, what to do, how to really train, things that we take for granted over here, and you may not get a chance to experience. So,
Absolutely, and it's
so
more
it's
more
all
for college
important.
teams with the foreign players. I know it was starting when you were playing, and it's even more so now. Because at the end of the, like we said, those coaches, it's their livelihood. They're going to find the best players to win.
Exactly.
Now, this is Robert Branson, and he asked, "What do you like most about working in insurance?"
Being able to help people, and specifically, I like the life insurance side because you're really helping someone. Well, you're not just helping that person; you're helping three generations. You're helping them, you're helping their children, and in some cases, you're helping their children's children by helping them set up these products. And a lot of the times, people don't know the significance of what they're doing today until something tragic happens in the future.
Yeah.
So I get a lot out of being able to help people on that side, but helping them just in case something happens.
It's got to be a great feeling. Now, this is Jasmine Williamson, and she's got two great questions. The first is, what made you choose this career path after getting a degree in computer science?
Because my skills in computer science became obsolete because I went overseas.
That's a good point.
Exactly. So as soon as I graduated, I went and played professionally, and I played for 9 years. So by the time I was done, none of that stuff is relevant anymore.
Wow.
And then also, one summer, I reached out to a lady on LinkedIn, and she recruited me to sell life insurance. And I got licensed to sell life insurance just to do it, to have an option for when I was done. I knew I wouldn't be able to play the rest of my life. So I decided to get licensed to sell life insurance. And when I stopped and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, weighing my options of going back overseas, and I decided, hey, I already have licensing to do the life and health side, and State Farm saved me some money on my car insurance. So I ended up going into the office and speaking with them. And I asked them, hey, I asked about a career there, and they gave me some information. And I ended up deciding to bet on myself. I had an opportunity to go back overseas. I passed that up to take an opportunity to work at State Farm because I spoke with leadership, and they told me about the agent role and the potential and the benefits of becoming an agent. And I was like, hey, I can go back over here and make more money temporarily, but only possibly play a few more years, or I can start working on life after basketball, and the income potential in this career is greater than what I'm currently making, and I can get there in a couple of years. I decided to take a bet on myself, and
Oh, that's awesome.
it worked out.
Yeah, and along those lines, and I forgot to mention this, is up until your last year in Europe, you were still averaging 15, 16 points. You were still a very productive player, but you recognized that I can't do this forever. I don't want to be too old to have a career. And that's such a great message. You had to plan for life after basketball. And if I can't stress enough to, these young athletes that, yeah, play sports now, play in college if you can. If you have blessed enough to play professionally, do it. But unless you're LeBron James, you're going to have to find a career at some point.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because it was tough figuring out what I wanted to do after basketball. Even though I had an idea of what some industries that I wanted to go into, it was tough. First of all, depending on the level that you get to, you're probably going to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
You don't have much. I didn't have much work experience, so I couldn't step into a job to make the type of money that I was making.
Wow.
So I made a fraction of what I made when I was playing, and it was humbling because you are coming from being an athlete and in front of people and being able to perform and all the perks that come with being a professional athlete. And now you have to come back and figure it out, but you don't have that work experience. So I would suggest if I had to go back and do it over again, I would have started preparing for after basketball when I began. Um, Reading more books, going to more seminars, more events, and learning. So I definitely recommend that any athlete don't just have tunnel vision on, well, you have to be focused and put in the work. But on the flip side, you still have to learn and develop some other skills to prepare yourself for when you're done, because it will be a tough transition.
Yeah, and
I
that
promise you that.
leads to her second question. And she asked, what is the hardest thing you've had to learn to keep up with the industry?
Just is always new rules and different things that's going on, regulations. Um, you have to be willing to learn and adapt a lot. So I think that that's one of the most important things with being in this industry is things are going to change. State laws may change, and you have to be abreast of all that.
Especially in your case where you're licensed in 3 states. And even though they are similar, you can't tell me all 3 of those are the same. There's no way.
No.
But
It's similar, but yeah.
That's also an advantage of your location because you're able to deal with Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee, which is something that a lot of business owners cannot do. So you have an ability to have a large footprint. So staying in Memphis was a great ideal situation for you because the Memphis metro area does stretch into Mississippi, and it's even stretching more so into Mississippi and into Arkansas as well. Now that the 40 bridge is finally fixed.
Exactly.
It took them over a year, but hey, now. Now I got one more from the students. This is Terry Thompson. And he asked, what skills are most important when someone is running their own company?
Being able to learn and listen to others, take feedback, because your way may not be the right way all the time, and you have to be able to adapt because sometimes things may not work out how you envision them to, and to be able to adapt and continue to learn so you can progress.
Absolutely.
Is the biggest skill.
Yeah, and I think that's a big mistake a lot of people that run their own business make. They think they know everything when you have to listen to the customer because, without the customers, you don't have a business. So the customer service skills are so important, as well as the communication. But Wes, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. But before we go, you grew up right up the road in Memphis from us, just 3 hours north, as a young black kid playing basketball, being an athlete just like a lot of these kids are and want to be. And you parlayed that into an unbelievable career. And I'm so cool that I know you. And you're one of my favorite players to ever watch. But now you're a business owner, a black business owner. You got a great family, and you become successful just by even as being a young black kid in America. So what can these kids do now, being young black kids, to be the same, just as successful as you? Even if they don't go into insurance or become an athlete, but they're going to face the same obstacles. What can they do?
I would say what has helped me is to try to be different. Don't try to fit in with the norm, because your environment, you don't want to get stuck there. So I always knew that I wanted to get out of where I grew up at. So do things different. People are gonna look at you, call you names or whatever. Don't try to be popular. Set your goals and stick to it, even though it may not be the most popular thing at the moment. And just always look and take people that you want to emulate and follow them and do things that will help you get out of those situations. I grew up in the same neighborhood as Penny Hardaway, so that was a idol of mine growing up, and I knew that, hey, I want to get out of here, I can't do these things that my friends are doing because that will possibly detract what I'm trying to do, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you got a great story. I mean, and it's so cool. Congratulations on everything you've done. It's a really cool story. And next time I referee at CBU, I'll let you know. You can come heckle me in the stands. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I do call in
that'd be
the
great.
South Conference, so I get to call it CBU sometimes. But again, man, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, and WesleyChannels.com. You know, you are licensed in Mississippi, so if we have any parents looking for any insurance products for home, car, health, life, you sell it all through the State Farm umbrella. WesleyChannels.com. All your information is on there. They can get in touch with you there on your Facebook page, and they can get set up for any insurance needs they may have.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to helping.
I appreciate it, my man. And always, let's go P.
Thanks, Greg. Let's go P.
All right, see you, brother.